Hey Soul Tribe, it's Kate and Kerry.
We are so excited to have you hear this new episode. Please review and subscribe at the end. It's free and it helps us keep spreading our message to you, our awesome listener. Thanks so much and enjoy the episode.
Hey guys, it's Kate and Kerry. Welcome to another episode of Soulsessed Twins. This is Kate in New York.
Hey guys, welcome. It's Kerry in California, and we're so excited to be here today. We're doing a really important episode and wanting to bring our personal experience with dealing with a loved one who is addicted in some way, shape, or form to either substance or something else that will cover the broad spectrum of it, but we're really going to start with the substance side of things and how and why you can't change them.
Yeah, just really focusing on what it's like and how to deal with someone that is abusing substance. Obviously, our experience is going to be with alcohol. It's going to be with food. That's going to be our experience, and we're going to draw off that. But it really can be anything. It can be any substance that a loved one is abusing, and you are trying to help them. And that way of help is universal. We always think that we can change somebody, that we can help somebody, but you soon find out, especially after dealing with it on a long-term basis, it's impossible to change anyone and make somebody stop doing something or do something. It's just as a total rat race.
Yeah, and Kate and I just thought we know how heartbreaking it can be and how painful this can be, and to just really try to bring some useful information on there's nothing you're doing wrong or nothing you're not doing. It's just not possible until the person wants help themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, many of us have tried to manipulate. You can try to bribe, you can try to beg them or make them or force them, but in the end, nothing works until they actually are the ones that want to do it.
Yeah, and I think too, to think about both sides are equally horrible to be on. So like being the abuser, the one who's abusing the substance, and the one that's trying to stop the abuser from abusing the substance, both are really painful. And I think a lot of times the person trying to help the other person thinks that, let's just say, for example, the drinker thinks that the drinker is just going and doing whatever the hell they want and doesn't give a shit about us, or oftentimes kids, right, that are involved, and that they don't care of what the effect and the pain that they're causing you. But that is so far from the truth. And I can say that, and Kerry can too, because we've been on both sides. I've been in both driver's seats, that just having alcohol, addiction, alcohol abuse, that knowing that alcoholics or problem drinkers, whatever you want to call it, are masters at the facade. And no one is better than us at disguising that there's a problem of any kind. And that's what can make us feel crazy helping them.
Right. And especially masters of disguise to themselves. I mean, it is an utter disease of lies to the one having the condition. So we're just lying to ourselves constantly, like, I got this is what I want to do, nobody gets me, everyone's against me. And deep down, deep down, you want, there's a problem, but you really feel like you cannot do anything about it. That this, it's really like, I remember, you and Mom wanting me to stop drinking. and feeling like you guys, were against me and that this is what I wanted to do. But I really deep down felt like I had no control over this thing, that this thing had me hook, line, and sinker. And there was nothing I could do about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is what I'm just going to do, is roll with it. But what really had me was my unwillingness to take responsibility and accountability, because I didn't want to change yet. And I didn't think I could, but really because I didn't want to.
Yeah. And that whole rat race can be so maddening for the family watching. Because even if you call them out, like we would say to Kerry at the time, Kerry's giving this example of just to stop and do all of that, that we're saying all of that. It was always some excuse, some clever excuse to then make you feel like you're crazy, that you have the problem, that it's not that big of a deal. Calm down. Oh my God, lighten up. I'm not saying Kerry would say that, but like that,
Pretty much.
that's the feeling. And all that masquerading and denial is really what it is. You don't know until you know. Is just the cover up of real pain. And it's a real illness that's happening. And even if the problem drinker or the one abusing the substance all of a sudden realizes, you know what, I want to stop, and they can't just stop, that's when you realize that they have lost that power to choose whether or not to drink, to take whatever substance that is. And that choice left a long time ago.
Yeah, exactly. And believe me, like Kate said earlier, it's like there's so much denial, but all the words that were coming at me, I really felt like it looked like I sort of didn't care and I was blowing it off and like, oh God, what's the big deal? But I was demoralized, like you can't even describe, and ashamed. The shame of like, I knew I looked like a drunk. It's like I knew I looked out of control. Um, so it is. It's like you think the person in the abuse doesn't care, but man, we care a lot. There's so much judgment, self-judgment going on that it's barely bearable. Also, too, thinking that this was the way I wanted to live. And, I know Kate, this was her brainstorm as well, of like, this is how I want it. This is, what I want to do. Any resistance to that just locked me in even deeper and buried me further into shame. So it was like harder to come out. The more that came at me from other people, the harder it was to come out of it. It was like you're in this fight that keeps you distracted in a way from the truth and admitting, yeah, I got a real problem, because you're just so caught up with fighting the people coming at you.
Yeah, but also too, like in the beginning, it's, we're talking too about stages of. So in the beginning of, a problem starting, or, it's still a really good time for the drinker or for, the substance abuser. So, yeah, anything coming to me at that time was a lot of like, it was so much denial and, like, calm down. It's not that big of a deal. Even when I was dealing with my own abuse and my parents coming to me, or my mom and my siblings and all of that. And it was like, oh, please. And a lot of it is so much of the denial, but you don't understand, and really diminishing what was going on there. But over time, when siblings, I really isolated them and cut myself out of their life because of the massive demoralization, the shame, the, utter self-hatred, all of it. It does over time for me, wore on me. like crazy of that, I was despicable. I was like, it was like, what are you doing? And at that point, there is a point where you lose the choice to say, all right, I'm not going to do this anymore. There is a point where an illness takes over. And that's
Yeah.
the difference in, our minds, our bodies, our spirits. It's a real illness. And I think that is so important for anyone that is dealing with somebody that is abusing substance, is really understanding how powerless you are in affecting someone that has an illness, not just being a pain in the ass and doing whatever they want to do. It's not that. There's an illness here.
Yeah. And that is like, the more you can get that it truly is a disease, like it really is, like how many times I would say I'm not drinking today. And I literally felt like I had roller skates on, rolling me to the fridge to get a drink, like it or not. I was actually, I will never forget it, in Manhattan, Kate and I living there in the West Village, and just feeling like I was being pushed to the refrigerator, and in my mind saying, I don't even want to be doing this. I don't even want to take a drink. And Kate and I would swear up and down, we're not going to drink today. And both of us were like, it wasn't a choice anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
I just, yeah, there was a couple nights or a few nights or whatever it was. Of course, it's towards the end. And I just remember drinking and crying into a wine glass of just like, I'm so sick of this. I fucking didn't want to go here again. And,
Mm.
again, it's like, I'm not talking about like Bowery bums and like falling down, with like no teeth. It's literally just, it's 5 o'clock. It's after work. I live in the West Village. I get home. I said, I'm not going to drink. I'm going to take it easy. And I then just say, I'm going to relax with a glass of wine. And the glass of wine turns into two. And then it turns into whatever it turns into. It turns into where I didn't want to go.
So,
Always.
it's so true. Yeah, exactly. And just always trying to have it be the way you wished it would be, which was one glass. It's like that's the chronic obsession of every person with, a substance abuse problem. Is, I don't know much about drugs, but I imagine it's like one snort or just one glass or one, whatever. Um, that's the obsession. That's the great fantasy. And it just doesn't turn out for that like that, because there is no control. And so that's what the person, your loved one, is dealing with, is this chronic obsession to try to manage and control it. And there is none. It's completely managing and controlling your loved one.
Yeah, think about that. Just really realize that. Let's just use alcoholism. Alcoholism is an illness. It's not a moral choice. If, none of us would choose to have an illness. It's just like cancer. If we could think about it that way too, like think about, your loved one is diagnosed with cancer and you're going out of your mind every which way to try and cure them of cancer. I mean,
Yes.
when you say it like that, it's like, what the fuck have I been doing? It comes into this whole understanding of we do not have the power to make someone else drink or not drink any more than we have the power to cause or cure any illness. And when you realize that, there's just such relief. It's like, wow, what have I been doing to them, but also to myself?
They're so good. It's like, Kate, that's like, really need to hammer that home, because I think it's such a great analogy to just really for people to separate from the frustration and the agony of the substances, to think of it in the cancer way. It's like, if somebody had cancer, could you heal them? Right? And or would you be so mad at them for having it? Would you hate them for having cancer? are they to blame? Did they give themselves cancer?
Mhm.
Right? So it's hard to think of it with substances. It's like, yeah, but they're the ones drinking. They're the ones doing this thing. It's like, yes and no. It is a disease that sort of takes hold of the person, just like cancer does.
Mhm.
So, you know, that the person has to run its course with to
Mhm.
either come to surrender and get help that they want themselves, or there's really nothing you can do until that happens.
It really, because I mean, I wanted to be on the side of our siblings. I wanted full blown, this is towards like the middle end of, my run with substance abuse, food, alcohol. I wanted so badly, like everything when they're like, what are you doing? You're sick. There's a problem. You're not well, all of that. I mean, my head would nod up and down. I know. Yes, I know. I know. And there was such a powerlessness towards it. So until that point comes, no matter what it is, you don't have to, again, be a bum on the Bowery for you to understand or get that that's what a bottom looks like. It doesn't. It was certainly not mine. I mean, so many of my friends still, when I got sober, were like, what are you doing? You don't even have a problem. Because again, we're so good at masking the problem of what's really going on. But a lot of the bottom is emotional. It's an emotional bottom. You're spiritually and emotionally empty. I was going to say whole, but
Yeah.
but you're empty.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, 100%. And can be very physical too. I mean, if you're a heavy drinker, your body just is starting to
ugh,
just get destroyed, right? And that, you know, really brings me to thinking about what really, really you can do dealing with somebody, a loved one, even a friend, you know, a loved one.
yeah.
It's really when my mom and Kate, in particular, they were the closest ones to me at that time, took a step back and somehow, you know, it somewhat like gave up uh, and left me alone in a bit, in a way that I was able to really feel the loneliness and see some of the destructiveness of what I was doing, that I was able to start to look at myself more and more and, you know, want to change. And I feel like in the quiet is where I got hopeless. And I really wanted to die. It's like you come to like wanting to, you're not happy, whether it's to that level of, you know, wanting to die or just like, I absolutely, what I wanted to die was I wanted what was happening to stop. That's what I wanted to die. And it's there that I surrendered and wanted help because, you know, I wanted to change because I knew it was always going to be the same and it was only going to get worse. And that's when I was in my aloneness that I could start to have self reflection and start to, I was only there left with myself. So I could only really in the end start to look at who was in the room. And it was me.
God, it's so what Carrie's referring to is that Carrie got sober before Carrie and I got sober. So she's talking about really a time where alcohol, I guess, became a, a, a problem to you sooner than it did me.
Yeah.
And so Carrie went in and got, to a 12-step program and got help. God, it was way before. I mean, what were you, 21?
Yeah. It was 5 years before we did.
5 years.
Six
No.
years. It was 6 years, maybe
How
six,
long were you in? How long were you sober?
a year. And I drank.
Okay, it was a year. And I remember where we were in my apartment on the Upper West Side.
Yep.
And you
Susan.
with Susan, with our other sister. And it was beer. Was it a Corona?
No, it was Coors Light bottle.
It was definitely totally a bottle.
Total bottle. Yeah. And I just remembered feeling like I want to be with these two. This is like a dream I've had since I was 4. for us to be like in the city drinking together. And I fucking got sober.
No.
And now they're living together in the city. I was like, fuck off. But it was because I really wasn't getting what I needed. And that's where I learned an alcoholic or an addict or somebody really heavy in a substance of something really needs massive help. You can't just like stop and then just not do it. It's like, no, that's where I learned I really need more the second time Kate and I got sober. And just why that guy was able to bamboozle me because I was so desperate. And so he offered me something, and that's why I grabbed on so tight. But yeah,
also like the massive help is just every day. It's not like you have to go away and like go behind bars just to
yeah,
get because I think people think like, it has to get so bad that like you have to lose your whole family and your job and you're homeless and all like it. Yes, of course that is people's
that
experience.
can happen. Yeah. So Kate, you're right. What I mean by massive help, and it's a great clarification, is you got to do the work. I wasn't doing like a lot of spiritual work. I was winging and a praying it and, hanging on to my steering wheel with white knuckles, just hoping I wouldn't turn into the liquor store. So it's like, I mean, even somebody with a massive habit, I know this for a fact. A friend of mine, wanting to not drink is not an alcoholic of any description and just has a bad habit. And she's like, oh, I just couldn't not go into the wine store. I just had to get a bottle of wine. And she's just trying to break the habit. And it's, it takes work and it takes doing ritually, routines that are going to help you, like self-reflection, journaling, meditating, breathing, the whole thing. So that's what we mean by massive help.
And what we've, spoken about time and time again on all of our episodes, like that is the work. It's not anything, it's very tangible. That's what I will say. This is tangible stuff. And so let's go back to like starting with the tools that really do help. I think the number one, the first tool is to really realize your powerlessness over someone else's problem, substance abuse, let's just say life, your powerlessness over someone else's life.
Yes. Oh my God. That's like, right. I mean, also too, think of you in their shoes. If someone's coming at you, telling you how to live your life, like birds up.
I mean, that's even someone on the tennis court telling me like,
Right.
oh, you should have moved a little bit quick. I'm like, fuck you. Don't like worry about your own game, sister.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is that just really realizing how powerless that we are if we, realize that the real power is going to be focusing on ourselves and not someone else. That's where, the freedom can start to come in.
Yeah, because you can't make someone else change. And when you really grasp that, you can see how much energy you are wasting trying to change somebody else. It's really hard to change ourselves. You think you're going to change someone else, right? So to look at that focus and put it on yourself and start to work on you. What can you change about you and help yourself in this scenario so that there's more? You're getting some peace of mind. It's just maddening. Otherwise, you're going to go crazy.
Yeah, if you're not already. I mean,
Yeah.
and so funny. It's like I was going crazy trying to help Kerry. All the while, I was full blown into my own shit. I was into my own, and it's like that is what is the real conversation is that when this happens, when we start to think that we're caring for, and we are, it comes from a good place where we're trying to help somebody get clean or stop using or whatever. Just not that in like the language is the language, like whatever. But what happens is that all we start to really think about is like, if they just stop, all would be well. If
Mhm.
they would just, not do it, then life would be great. Our life would be great. Their life would be great. The kids' life would be great. Life would be great. But you realize that all that effort and energy has shifted almost exclusively to what we can't control, which is that person.
Yep,
And
exactly.
totally lose sight of what we can control, which is ourselves and our attitudes and our behaviors.
Yeah, exactly. And just feeling that utter frustration of like, God, just be better. Like, why can't you be better? Because what?
Well, no, because it's like, just be better so I can be better.
Yeah, be better so I can feel better and not have to worry about this shit anymore and move on. And it's like, yeah, well, you can and you should, because they're not going to just be better because you want them to. That's not how it works. And also, too, like I remember, with you wanting you so badly to be better with food, in even just high school. And it's like everyone's got to be there. Everyone is on their own journey. And that's really what we have to get, even your kids. Even your kids. It's like we all are on our own spiritual path, even when it's fucked up. We're on our own path here. And you have to surrender to realize this is their own life. It's not yours. You got your own, they got theirs, right? As difficult as that can be. But truly, I just do want to say, because I just feel like it's so important to realize that space gives room for self-reflection. So stepping away is actually the best help you could give. And it doesn't mean you're giving up, because there's such a dilemma in like, what if I stop doing something? I'm a bad person. I don't love them. I don't care. I have to do this because I'm their mom or I'm their sister or I'm their friend. But really, that's totally interference with the process of where this person has to go. And stepping away is the only way that they can really address themselves, is when they're left with their own reflection there to look at it.
So that could be the next tool, which is really detachment with love. That's what that is. And I remember, when this first came to me, detach with love. A lot of this, first of all, I was going to say, like when we started this episode, like, oh, how can we really get real help? And it's like, go to Al-Anon. And after I said that and thought that, I was like, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Have a good day. Like Al-Anon can help you tremendously. And it's like, this is what's so wild about substance abuse and people that are sick and suffering with it, and how much shame is associated with the person that's actually in the throes of it, that's actually doing it, and how much shame is with our loved ones, how much shame and secrecy and don't tell anybody, and it's not that bad. And you're talking about like your husband or your best friend or your sister or your parents.
So tough.
All of that is just it's so secretive, and there's just such shame around it.
Yeah, I mean, and it is who wants to go around saying like, yeah, my husband's, really in the bottle right now. It's so tough because you're watching what being in the bottle does, or, hitting the bottle too hard, or, overeating too much. It's painful. It's painful to watch. It's painful to be in it. But also, really, like Kate's saying, the detachment part is for your own sanity and the best help you could give them, like I said. Because, but also what I wanted to say is that doesn't mean shun them, right? It's not like punishment and shunning and you're bad and like fuck you, which there's a lot of anger here, right? But to really get to understanding addiction or somebody in the throes of something, that it's nothing that they can really do right now until they get through the process and into surrender. of getting to empathy and compassion and just like, fuck, they're in a really hard time, to not be judgmental, but to be compassionate and understanding and show that towards them, right? But, to say, like, I would say, I'm here for you when you're ready to change. I can't do anything about where you're at now. You have to do that, but I still love you. I can, but I can only support you when you're ready to change this. And then it's sort of love from a distance, not with judgment, not with anger. Of course, that can come up, but you got to really work on it to come more of an understanding, like this person has cancer.
Yeah. And I think too, exactly, like detach with love does not mean that you start to love them less or that you start to care about them less, or it means that you start to, care more about yourself. It has nothing to do with that. It really is, again, about this number one tool, which is how powerless we are and how crazy we've become in trying to control someone else's life, someone else's issue. And now when we have detached with love, because we realize that, then when we detach with love, because now we realize we have our own, we're good and sick ourselves now, because I mean, the disease gets everyone ill. Who it touches, it doesn't only touch the drinker or the substance abuser. It touches everyone around them and gets everyone good and sick. You have
Yeah.
to work on, trust me.
Yeah. And also, too, it's like, and that's not their fault. They're bringing up in you your massive control issues, your inability to look at yourself and be able to, let people live how they need to live, and you as well. So it's not like they're making you this crazy, awful person. It just brings up a lot of things that we all need to work on to get to surrender and more, realize we can't manage and control people. We can barely manage and control ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And the detachment is just, it's really letting go of expectation. Really like, oh, if I do this, then they'll do X.
Right.
Getting rid of all that friggin' crazy
Manipulation.
manipulation. Yeah. And just, control. I mean, bottom line is just really that control. And, a lot comes in with when you hear detach with love, there's a lot of guilt with it. There's a lot of guilt associated with, and survivor's guilt is one of them. And I want to touch on this one with you, because I know that I'm certain that you've experienced this, but there's a lot of guilt when someone that we love so much is suffering and we decide to pull back and we decide to detach with love and now focus on ourselves to get well, to find our own happiness, to find joy, even while our loved one is sick and suffering. And we feel guilty for that. I certainly did. And detach with love can also get such a bad rap because it's not understood. People say, how can you not help her? How
Yeah.
are you not doing that? How are you so happy and looking like you're living such a wonderful life? Like when your loved one is so sick and like you do nothing about it. And that
Seemingly nothing about it. It may look like that, but man.
yeah, you get to a point where you start to get help and you start to realize what real help looks like for the one that's sick and also for yourself. And a lot of it is this, like, we're not that powerful. I can't control somebody. I
Yeah.
can't make someone well. It's like
Yeah.
crazy to think about that.
I know. And the best example is when my loved ones, you guys, stopped being, trying to make me change and start to be happier yourselves. Man, did that burn. That's the example the person in it needs to see wellness going on around them, right? To make me wake up more to like, oh my God, I'm alone here in this ridiculous place that I do not want to be. So it really, your happiness blesses the other person in it so that they can feel like they're missing out and start to want to climb out of the hole they're in. Right? And
Absolutely. And it gives the problem, drinker, substance abuser, less to excuse about. She's such a bitch. She's on my case, or he's on my case. And then like, cause for a drink. Wouldn't
right.
you drink? All of that, like the shit that goes on, the denial, the excuses. And when we start to just focus on ourselves and take care of ourselves and find joy in ourselves in our own life, yeah, it's like, what?
Yeah.
Shit, that looks pretty good.
Say that again. The what?
And then the person, over time may or may not, but a lot of times will say, shit, that looks pretty good.
Yeah. The light burns.
Yeah.
The light burns the dark for sure. And that is truly, that's why I say it's the best thing you could do is step away. As hard as it is, it truly is the best medicine because the person has to want it, not you.
Right. And I think there's just so much ignorance around this problem that, this problem of abuse and substance abuse and all of this, for what the, like, ignorance on really what the addiction is, like the definition of like what's really going on, the science behind it, and also what's really going on with somebody that's loved one is suffering, like, and what you would think, the help and what would look this is the differential. The real help doesn't look good.
Yes.
The help you think, oh my God, she's sleeping on outside on her stoop. She has no life. She's doing everything she can to help her sibling or help her husband or help her wife, help his wife. All of that is like, oh my God, she gave up her life to help her. What a beautiful, wonderful soul.
It actually hurts the person more. It really does. And that's where, it has to matter most to them is really where it's going to come from, because otherwise it's enabling.
Mhm.
And we really think that, being that comforter, being there no matter what, loving them no matter what, being all over them, telling them, you're right there and helping them with money or anything in that overzealous way is, why would the person change if they're in it and it's that comfortable still? It makes it harder to change, right? Because you're just getting everything you need. And it's like the thing that you're abusing and the way you're living is being supported, right? So there's no reason to change if it's that comfortable. And just like the old saying, and I know it has to apply to getting married or whatever, but apply it to this. Why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free?
Right.
Why would the person change if they're getting every comfort, every creature comfort met, every love, all the love still, nothing's changed with them doing this when it really is super destructive and killing them and everyone around them? So pulling back is the only way. It may look bad, but once you realize you can't change everybody, you know what's up. And you got to stick true to that. It's like, yeah, I know, but pulling away and living my life is the healthiest thing for all of us, and especially them, especially you.
Yeah. No matter, and it's painful. It's
It
not,
is.
I think about, we have one sibling right now that's struggling, and you don't think I think about her every day,
Ugh.
or something comes up and I don't just laugh. I mean, to have her back the way that she is, I mean, I would give anything, but that doesn't mean I have to give my life away. I can't, it doesn't, if I could, I would, but that's not the answer. That's just, that's not, that's the surest way to hell for both people.
Yeah, and when you say you laugh, thinking of memories we used to have, with her and the relationship we used to have, but things change and it can get really unhealthy where it's destructive and it's not doesn't benefit anybody and it really hurts everyone in the end. So having space doesn't mean the person giving the space is carefree and doesn't give a shit. It's very painful still. It
Oh,
makes me like really choke up because it's hard. It's really hard. And Kate and I are not sitting here saying like, just give space. It's so easy. And then just go and play tennis and, live your life and have a party and no one cares. No, it's not what we're saying. It's actually the hardest thing that you could possibly ever do if you have to go through it in your life is to step away from a loved one and have them have to go through it themselves until they want and are able to get the change and the help they need.
yeah. I mean, it's real humility. It's,
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's humility and it's it's hard. And it just reminds me of like my stepson dealing with the child, and a teenager. And I'm sure most of our listeners, or not most, but you know, have dealt with somebody that is a underage and dealing with things that they can't control. And as much as you want to love them out of what they're in, you can't. You have to give space. And with him, I did every single thing I could, and including, saying boundaries. You can't do any of that in front of me or in the house. Get through what you're getting through. I'm here for you. And that's more particularly actually somebody older where you can't do this in front of me, which really wakes them up as well. But with a kid, it was like giving them every opportunity, trying to do this, trying to do that. And when it gets dangerous and things are going on in the house that affect other people, including my son at the time is 2.5. And there was, cops at the house nearly every day. There was, drugs at one point in the house. And my little, his stepbrother, his brother, my son could take it at any second. And that's where danger comes in. And unfortunately, nothing was getting through. And he needed real professional help, And so the tough decisions that we all have to make and get to, mine at this stage, I was going to the school every day and trying to get him the extra care that a school could afford. They didn't have it, and they didn't even know where he was most of the time. And he became a real threat where he was getting into a lot of danger in gangs. He was like getting around gangs and stuff, and the cops were at my house a lot, and his life was on the line. And it was serious. And that's where, this is how tough it gets, where you have to intervene and say, this kid's not going to make it. Or certainly going to be way more addicted and in more trouble than I could ever handle and deal with. That I'm going to intervene now and get him help he needs before it's too late, way too late. And he had to, go to a therapeutic boarding school. It saved his life. He's not addicted now. He's not in a gang. He's, doing the best he can. He still, needs a lot of help, but he's alive. I swear to God, I do not believe he would be the way he was going. And he would definitely be addicted in a bad way. So that was tough. That was tough to step back and have to make that decision of sending him away. And oof, that was hard on my ex-husband and all of us. But in the end, we all knew, and he knows too, it kept him alive. And he said that I wouldn't have made it.
mhm.
Just right. So these tough decisions, it's stepping away that may look bad, but in the end are good.
Yeah, and I think too, when we try to just do so much and intervene so much, you're really stopping the person from getting to their bottom. I mean,
Right,
that's
right.
where, like, rehab comes into play. Oh, I've been to rehab 5 times. Yeah, because everyone's on your fucking case and you're going when you're not ready. You're not
And
ready.
for them,
Yeah, you're going for them. You're going
or
for
they're making you go.
right.
Like,
And
no, yeah, it doesn't work until the person wants to. And all the intervention does, it keeps them, you got to give people the dignity of their own pain.
yeah, exactly. Hmm.
I mean, how many people tried to intervene? It just prolonged what I needed.
Well, and also too, how do we know what is best for someone else? Like, so we want pain to stop, we want struggle to stop, and because that is a symbol of good, that's a symbol of somebody doing well. Really? Like I have learned, I'm 47 now. The biggest lessons, biggest growth, biggest like aha moments on earth are through my toughest times, and I was all alone.
That's right. And, pain is the touchstone to spiritual growth. I mean, it just is true. Yes, we hate to watch it. Yes, we hate to see it. But look at your own experience, right? When we've gone through really tough times is when we've gotten to the other side of, oh my God. And, oh, I'm so glad that happened. I mean, you've got to give people their own path that they have to walk, right? And, when it's getting dangerous with a child and stuff, you do all you can and step away and let them, but when it's getting dangerous, that was what was needed for him to stay alive and do well. Um, but because we were stepping back to realize all of our interference is doing nothing and keeping not doing any good. So the second we stepped away and he went was where he was able to look at himself and say, "Oh my God, what the fuck am I doing?"
Mhm.
That was what happened. And he was like, "Oh my God, thank God I got here because I was really on a bad way." So we were interfering by not having him go. So it's just, it's tough. You just never know what somebody needs. And just take a step back to have that revealed is really where it's at.
Yep. It's just a more mature understanding of, again, like our level of power and how little we have when it comes to another person.
Yeah.
The
I, I did want to say too, this is so interesting. Mel Robbins was saying that there's this thing called the my bias. Let me see where I wrote that down. So interesting. Um, the my side bias. So 3% of people ever change when feel lectured to or that someone else wants them to or is forcing them to do it. 3% of people only change in that scenario. 37% of people change when they believe the idea is coming from themselves. That's fascinating, right? So also, like when
well,
you're telling your spouse or your kids what to do, flipping it to like making it their idea. I know it sounds manipulative, but it is more respectful too. Like let the person have the, some power, some like realize like they have some control in their own life and they need to make the decision. So the way you word things does make them feel like they're not being belittled or, you know, demoralized and shamed. It's like,
well, there's a way too. You're saying you're teaching communication in a way that helps a child think on their own.
yeah, give autonomy. Let them feel like they are a person with some decision making to do.
Mhm.
That starts early. And that's what I'm doing with Billy. I'm like, it's like, because we know, right? It's important to know that you got to realize, and I wished I'd learned it really way younger, that I'm making choices here. I'm
Mhm.
making decisions.
Mhm.
Do you, if you do this, this is what happens. If you do that, this is what happens. Which one do you want? And it's like to give the power as young as you can to somebody is life-saving and life-changing. Now, with an adult in a bad scenario that they're, doing something, you can't say that. Like, the choice has been made and they got to get to that decision making and that consequence on their own to, realize how to get out of it.
So I think the biggest tools that you can take away is to realize what the disease, what the substance abuse is, what that is, what is that this is not a decision and a choice that I'm just going out with the boys tonight, we're not talking about that. If that's just what it is, then that's just what it is. We're talking about a problem, and that it's not, it's an illness. And to really understand, remember that example of cancer, that we're just not that powerful, and that trying to pull our own hair out to save somebody else and to make somebody do something that we want them to no longer do makes no sense. So you have the powerlessness.
And I did just want to, that just came to me. It's like the person's chemo is their own relationship with God.
Mhm.
Or this something higher than themselves, and we have nothing to do with that.
Mhm.
Just like we can't administer chemo, right? We can't administer a relationship with God in someone. They have to build that and get that themselves, and that's through pain.
So you have your powerlessness, you have detach with love, you have now focusing on yourself and starting to find the help and healing that you need for your life to get well. So a lot of that is, I really can't stress enough, Al-Anon is huge. And, when I mentioned that earlier, it reminded me right away of shame, because so much of this is like, I'm not going there. Then they're going to know that Bobby's sick and or somebody has a problem. And it's like, dude, we're like, what brings us together is commonality, whether it's joy or pain. So if you're going somewhere and somebody's going to be there, how great, you just made a connection. You just
That
made,
you're both going through.
right, you're both going through. And so getting that help through Al-Anon, even if it's on online meetings, literature. I have wild book that is actually from Al-Anon, Discovering Choices, because
Mm.
like alcoholism and the illness in your family, whether you're the alcoholic or you're the problem drinker or not, these siblings, the whole family gets sick. So even though I also was an alcoholic, I also needed Al-Anon because I had alcoholics around me too, even friends.
Mhm.
So Al-Anon, this was a great one. This book is Discovering Choices. You can get it on Amazon, and it's Discovering Choices, Al-Anon family groups. That's a huge one. Therapy, obviously, and spirituality, like you're
Yeah.
saying, Carrie, like claiming and finding that God in your life, whatever you want to call him, her.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, guys, there's so much stuff out there right at our fingertips now. I mean, even if it is hard and you don't want to go out somewhere, come on. The internet, Instagram, TikTok, there's so much that you can just look into and read. And I strongly encourage you to read about what the disease is, right?
Mm.
What condition, what alcoholism is, what addiction is, so that you can get a more come from a place of more understanding, just even for yourself, to feel less angry and frustrated and realize, oh shit, this is a disease here. This isn't someone being a bad person.
Right. They're hurting.
You're hurting.
It looks like Johnny Good Times. It's not. A lot of time, it's not. That deep down, after the party's over.
Yeah,
Morning.
or Johnny sloppy times. I mean, it's like, doesn't Johnny see it? Yeah, they do. Yes and no. They're in denial. They know, but they don't, the whole thing. So another good one too is stop being mad at people for not being who you want them to be. They got to get there themselves, or they are how they are. Right? I mean, it's not always just substance stuff as well. It's like you wanting somebody to change in any way. It helps to realize, if they wanted to, they would change, right? And that to stop being mad at them for not being who you want them to be. Like, just wanting somebody to be, I don't know, less like to be more organized or more like a planner, where somebody's more like, they're not like that. Their personality, they're not capable, right? So they either delegate that to an assistant who does all their calendar stuff because they're not like that, or they got to, deal with it their way, but they're not going to be how you want them to be, which is sitting down and, being punctual and all that stuff. Some people aren't like that. So that's what I mean. Like, meet people where they are.
Acceptance, baby.
Acceptance. Oh my God.
Let's not beat around the bush.
I'm just trying to make this listener guess. What's she getting to? Spit it out. Acceptance. That's it.
All right, so we hope that this was helpful. There's way more that could be discussed and talked about. Please reach out to us on Instagram. We will talk to you till the cows come home on this topic. There's no end to this. This is a real baffling, cunning, just torturous situation to be in, and we know it all too well from both sides.
All sides.
Mm-hmm.
So many angles that all of our families take part in, right? So yeah, that would be amazing. Reach out, let us know, we can explore anything else for you. I love talking about this stuff. I absolutely love to help in any way that we can. So thanks so much for being here. We love you so much, and tune in next week.
Bye guys, get soul-sessed.
Check us out on Insta at Soulsessed Twins. Love you.
Bye.
Stay tuned, guys. We are thrilled to be here with each other, and feel so privileged to try and carry a message of hope and positive change to one other person out there. So please subscribe and review and share our podcast to reach that person. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Soulsessed Twins and get daily inspo and connect with us.
Let's build this community together.
100%.
So come back next week and we'll see you then.
Get soul-sessed with us, Soul Tribe.
That's it. Bye, guys.